Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast, I'm Sam Sachs. Fresh canisters of news have been sent out. Please make sure the pneumatic tubes are clear. It's Friday the 13th, which means if I want to, I can start the show by talking about UFOs. And that's what we're going to do. Drones are lighting up the New Jersey skies, according to residents. But the White House claimed there's actually nothing unusual happening. The last couple weeks, local news outlets and social media have been awash with videos and eyewitness accounts of flying objects around the East Coast, concentrated in the New Jersey area. They appear to be unmanned drones varying in size from around 6 feet long to as long as an SUV. Sometimes they flash lights, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they appear to be flying in formation with other drones, sometimes they're alone. The crafts have been spotted flying around what are considered sensitive locations, like the President-elect's Country Club in Bedminster, also a military arsenal and research facility. Local authorities dispatched helicopters to identify the drones, but were unable to reach them. And according to local officials who were briefed by the Department of Homeland Security, the drones seem to evade traditional methods of detection. So far, no one knows their origin or what they're doing, where they're landing, anything. Or at least, no one is saying. The FBI is reportedly investigating the matter. Local, state, and federal lawmakers want more transparency and explanations for what's happening. So far, the Pentagon and the White House have only been able to state what the drones are not. Defense Department spokesperson Sabrina Singh denied a claim made by Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew that the drones are coming from a, quote, Iranian mothership parked off the East Coast. There is no Iranian mothership parked off the East Coast, the Pentagon said. Singh added that the drones do not pose a safety risk, nor do they appear to be the work of any foreign adversary, and she also claimed that they do not belong to the U.S. military. Meanwhile, over at the White House, John Kirby on the National Security Council briefed reporters and claimed that actually there are no drones.
The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating these sightings, and they're working closely with state and local law enforcement to provide resources using numerous detection methods to better understand their origin. Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully.
That answer is obviously not sitting well with residents and local officials who claim to be seeing this stuff every dang night. I've seen a lot of the videos, and I'll admit, a lot of them just look like airplanes. And some people are clearly mistaking seeing multiple airplanes lined up to land for a swarm of drones. But I gotta say, hearing that smug asshole Kirby, who's been lying about Gaza for over a year now, tell people that actually nothing is happening, there are no drones, makes me think something is happening. Whatever it is, Americans in New Jersey are finally getting a chance to feel what it's like to be any number of millions of people subjected to U.S. imperialism and its drone war over the last 2 decades. And that's without anyone in Jersey getting blown up by these things. The constant threat from the skies is fucking terrifying, isn't it?
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
The White House announced this week it was commuting the sentences of nearly 1,500 people and pardoning an additional 39 individuals, the first major acts of clemency carried out by President Biden since he used his presidential powers to protect his son Hunter from prison. The administration is billing it as the largest single-day clemency grant in modern history. But looking closer at the numbers, there's still a lot to be desired. The 1,500 people who had their sentences commuted were actually already out of prison, so they were the lowest hanging fruit possible for Biden to offer relief. During the COVID pandemic, prisons released a number of people to home confinement to relieve overcrowding. Biden's commutations only apply to those who were released as part of that program and served at least a year of home confinement. The 39 pardons went to people who had committed nonviolent offenses and who the White House said showed successful rehabilitation. These included mostly white-collar criminals who were involved in corruption and fraud. So that still leaves behind tens of thousands of federal inmates and people facing prosecution, including many who are serving lengthy sentences for nonviolent drug offenses. Roughly 36 Democrats wrote a letter to the White House calling for a pardon of environmental lawyer Steve Donziger, who was convicted of bogus charges in a sham trial after he attempted to hold Chevron accountable for environmental damages in Ecuador. There's also a push to grant clemency to Native American activist Leonard Peltier, who's been locked up since 1976. And then there are the 40 people currently sitting on the federal death row. Biden campaigned on ending the death penalty. He failed to do so, but he could at least save the lives of those who will surely be executed if Trump takes power. Biden is under pressure to commute their terms to life in prison instead. The White House did say that there would be more announcements to come in the future. Biden should just empty all the goddamn prisons. It's what Dark Brandon would do. In a last-ditch regulatory move before Trump comes in and burns it all down, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is trying to protect the monarch butterfly. The orange and black fluttering creatures can be seen across North America, but their numbers in the United States have been declining. Biologists at the agency estimate that the species east of the Rocky Mountains has a higher than 50% chance of extinction in the next 60 years. And the species west of the Rockies, a 99% chance. This is due to a number of factors: climate change, human encroachment into breeding and migratory areas, and the widespread use of insecticides. Wildlife officials are now proposing to aid the survival of the butterfly by placing it on the endangered species list, which would afford it some protections, meaning restrictions on certain human activities that could further endanger the monarch. Exactly what those new regulations might be will be determined after a public comment period. That's assuming that Trump's wildlife officials don't immediately shut it all down when he takes power. The president-elect has already put forward a new proposal that would allow corporations to evade environmental regulations by paying a fee up front. On Truth Social, Trump posted, quote, "Any person or company investing $1 billion or more in the United States of America will receive fully expedited approvals and permits, including, but in no way limited to, all environmental approvals. Get ready to rock." Unclear what investing in the United States means in this scenario. Is it a check to Uncle Sam? Check to the Trump re-election campaign? Is it simply opening a factory in the US? Doesn't seem like this idea has been completely fleshed out. And the Trump transition team didn't offer any other details about it either. One person who absolutely loved it, though, is the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who is notorious for evading environmental regulations at his SpaceX launch site in Texas. Musk responded to the idea, posting, quote, "This is awesome," with an emoji rocket ship. Yeah, these next 4, 8, however many years are going to be a real struggle for all of us, perhaps none more so than the dang monarch butterfly. The oligarchy is simping hard for Donald Trump. On Thursday, the president-elect was invited to ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's the same day that publishers at Time magazine flattered Trump by making him their Person of the Year. It's a distinction that goes to whoever impacted the world the most, for better or for worse. And even though it is a title once given to Hitler, Trump treats it like he won an Oscar. The news came out that tech elites Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg would each donate $1 million to Trump's inauguration committee. Trump has often clashed with both Amazon and Facebook, even once claiming he would throw Zuckerberg in jail. But the tech oligarchs know that the incoming president is susceptible to flattery, and they're all bending that knee. Not that I expected anything else. Clearly, we here at MMN are going to be very busy keeping tabs on these assholes over the next several years. Moving on to the business at hand for today, though. This week's Rich Dick is Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Okay, so this is a first, at least that I've heard of. The Congresswoman this week had someone arrested for shaking her hand too aggressively, she claimed. The incident occurred at the Rayburn House office building during an event for foster children. As Mace was leaving it, James McIntyre approached her, shook her hand, and advocated on behalf of trans youth within the foster system. McIntyre is the co-founder of the Illinois chapter of Foster Care Alumni of America, and Mace has been rebranding herself lately as a fierce opponent of trans rights, currently on a crusade to make sure trans people can't use the Capitol Hill bathrooms that match their gender. And in the interaction with McIntyre, it appears Mace saw another opportunity to bring attention to herself and demonize trans people. Because at some point after the encounter, Mace called the police and claimed she had been assaulted. She claimed, according to the police report, that McIntyre, quote, took her hand with both of his hands and shook her arm up and down in an exaggerated, aggressive handshaking motion, and that as a result, she was experiencing pain in her wrists, arm, and shoulder. Capitol Police then arrested McIntyre, who had to spend the night in jail. He's since pleaded not guilty and returned home to Chicago. Here's how Mace reported what happened on Twitter. Quote, I was physically accosted at the Capitol tonight by a pro-trans man. One new brace for my wrist and some ice for my arm, and it'll heal just fine. The Capitol Police arrested the guy. Your trans violence and threats on my life will only make me double down. F around and find out. Trans violence? Get out of here. Mace was seen walking around the Capitol with that wrist brace. She complained about soreness throughout the week, and she got a sympathy call from Donald Trump asking her how she was doing. It's all quite the act. Because according to multiple eyewitnesses who saw the interaction between McIntyre and Mace, she's full of shit. One of the witnesses, Elliot Hinkle, a foster advocate from Wyoming, told the Washington Post, quote, what we witnessed was a handshake, a passionate shake, but it didn't look like an assault or intended aggression. Hinkle also explained the bizarre circumstances just prior to McIntyre's arrest. Quote, after the contested handshake, Hinkle said, McIntyre returned to his seat, and the Congresswoman left. Hinkle said that a short time later, one of Mace's aides approached McIntyre and asked for his name and what message he had. Hinkle said McIntyre repeated what he told Mace, and the aide left. A short time later, Hinkle said Capitol Police officers showed up at the reception. Another witness, Lisa Dixon, a foster youth advocate from Ohio, wrote on Facebook about the incident, quote, I want to express deep disappointment in the fact that Congresswoman Nancy Mace came to a national foster youth event, told participating youth that it was a safe space, and literally had one of them arrested by Capitol Police for simply shaking her hand and asking about trans rights. So, did police just not talk to any witnesses before arresting McIntyre? I mean, probably not surprising that Capitol Police would just defer to whatever the Congresswoman says, but Mace doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt at all. At all. There's a pattern of behavior here. Mace reportedly wanted to get punched in the face by a January 6th rioter just so she could elevate her political profile and be the face of the Never Trump Republican movement. That was back when she was a supporter of trans rights. She's since recalculated her path to political relevance in the Republican Party and is now a staunch opponent of trans rights. There was another incident that occurred in 2021 in which Mace claimed that Antifa had vandalized her home in South Carolina. Conveniently, it was just the sidewalk in front of her home, not her actual house, that was spray painted. She included pictures showing various slogans painted on the street like, "Fuck you, Nancy," and "No gods, no masters," "All politicians are bastards," and "Pass the PRO Act," which that last one doesn't quite fit the MO of Antifa. None of those do, really, but typically Antifa is not out here demanding incrementally progressive labor reforms. Anyway, Mace's allegations were further called into question when a Twitter user identified how suspicious it was that whoever spray painted Mace's sidewalk has the same exact handwriting as she does. A sample of Mace's handwriting shows that both she and the vandalizer dot their I's in the same weird way, with upside down U's. They also both write their A's identically. Now, if you're asking me if I think that the Congresswoman would go as far as spray painting her sidewalk to claim that she was a victim of Antifa harassment, I would say yes. Yes, of course she would. Just like she would exaggerate a tense interaction with a member of the public to again center herself in the headlines and also make it part of her campaign against trans rights. Also, while doing some research, I learned that not only is Nancy Mace a despicable human being, she's also a landlord. I know, that's redundant. According to her congressional financial disclosure, she earns between $100,000 and $1 million a year from rental properties. Only bringing this up to establish that she indeed qualifies as rich, not just a dick. Regardless of her bank account, though, Mace does share a key personality trait of the ruling class: never-ending victimization complex. And for that and other things, Nancy Mace is this week's Rich Dick. Okay, friends, the show ends today with a sunrise from Austria. It was sent in by friend of the show, Teddy Kelly's mom, Marie, in Vienna. Enjoy. Thanks, Marie, and hope you're doing well out there, Teddy. Show's over. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please sign up for Means TV, subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels, and follow us on social media. One day capitalism will fall. I promise it will. But until then, we're going to be right here. See you next week.